Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast, the podcast all about the delicate balance between people and business, and quite literally reconnecting the two. My name is Tracy Rubin, and I've spent nearly my entire professional career in HR. Join me as I share stories, opinions, and words of advice with you each week. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I have such an exciting episode for you to listen to watch. And my guest, Meghan Houle, is a friend. She's a colleague in so many ways because she also is and grew up in retail. And she's just been an amazing partner through all of this fun stuff at the podcast and being in an HR profession and everything. I mean, Meghan and I met virtually a few years ago, actually, I think during the quarantine in 2020. So we've never met in person. And she has just been such a good friend and such a wonderful person to lean on and reach out to and a resource and someone who's connected me with so many people. And I think you are going to love listening to our episode today. I actually was on her podcast, the Pivot with Purpose podcast, back in 2021. So in the beginning of 2021, almost a year ago, and we talked all about HR and making the switch to HR and so many amazing things. And I'm going to link that episode for you. So if you want to catch it, you can listen to it. Meghan is a senior executive recruiter at the Bowerman Group, focused on luxury and specialty retail, corporate, and wholesale businesses. And she is ACC certified as a career and business coach. And let me tell you, you are going to get a one-of-a-kind coaching on this episode. I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. And she has spent so many years of her career in retail. So she and I connect on that level, you know, and even if you are not in retail, we always say this, these industries they shift and they change and they overlap, right? So it doesn't matter whether she's a retailer, non-retailer, former retail. If I'm in retail, we all have something to bring to the table. And I think you're just going to enjoy what she has to say. In this episode, we are going to talk a lot about career glow-ups and what that glow-up looks like. So if you are looking to make a shift in your career, if you're looking to make a change or, you know, maybe get that promotion or earn more or whatever it is that you want to get after, we talked about manifesting destiny, right? In the very first episode of 2022, you are going to get some amazing information and facts and tips on this episode. So stay tuned. All of the links to connect to Meghan will be in the show notes below, wherever you're listening or watching, so you can connect with her. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get right into it. I'm so excited, Meghan, that you're here. Just in general, I mean, it's funny that the internet has brought us together because I don't remember exactly the moment that we connected because we've never met in person. We've only met through the interwebs. And it's just amazing. I remember the time that we spoke over the phone during the big Q in 2020, big quarantine, and how enthralled I was by your energy and passion around what you were doing. And I had already started the podcast and you were just starting your podcast. So I'm so excited to have you on the show. Finally, it took way too long.
I know. Well, thank you. And I feel like, as the saying goes, birds of a feather. You know, I think for me, seeing other individuals that live in our retail space, but are also, you know, kind of doing these new passion projects, you know, sort of bringing to life some things they've had in their soul, be it podcast or otherwise, you know, seeing other people kind of taking the same journey, you're like, hey, me too.
Yeah.
You know, and like, what best practices can we share? You know, how can we lift each other up? And as we know, it's not easy, you know, working a full-time job, plus managing all the content, being one boss babe shows over here. It's really nice to have a support group, you know, beyond just all of the retail things that we do, but like really sharing in some of our other same loves.
For those listeners who maybe are looking for more career specific guidance, because naturally, like I talk a little bit about it on my podcast, but I think one of the things that you do really nicely is that you bring on guests that are in all of these different areas of industries and careers. And you talk about pivoting and how we can maximize our potential. So when we think about career glow ups, which I love because everyone's about the glow up right now, what advice would you share with those of us who want to have a career glow up this year, and what are some things that people can do to like start to take action?
To elevate, yeah. I mean, certainly, I think I don't know that many humans that are not looking inside themselves right now and being like, what can I change about my life? What can be a little bit better? We've had a lot of time over the past couple of years beyond watching Netflix to really sit with ourselves and say, well, some maybe more time than others, but just in general, with this life shift we've been tossed into via working at home, lockdowns, reevaluating what's important in life, where our priorities are. I think the key word, and listen, pivot, I'm a hashtag trademark. That word's not going away for all the pivot word haters. It's the heart of my podcast. It's not going away.
I've been seeing that flying around. I'm like, I'm not here for the anti-pivot word.
No, it's still here. But I would just say like this, maybe a couple words as we get into this year in 2022, alignment and clarity. I think a glow up truly is, it's not about, chasing that next big shiny company name or brand.
Yeah.
Because as we know, Tracy, and, no names being tossed out, there's definitely some companies and brands that could be doing better on the people side of things, and could be putting out like this beautiful story, but the inner workings aren't great. So you wind up like getting into a dream brand and you're like, wow, this is how it is. Like, I'm super disappointed. Where it's more about, really aligning yourself with a career path and journey that you feel is in alignment with just a total job satisfaction. Like, that's what I truly feel like a glow up is. It's taking a look at what you're doing now, maybe what you love, and then saying, can I be doing something even bigger, even better? How can I be challenged even further? Or a glow up in a sense where maybe it's a company or a culture that's just no longer serving you, or, a situation that, maybe you do need to have more remote or more hybrid, or for whatever that looks like for you, and saying, okay, here's what has changed for me from a people point of view or whatnot. How can I get into more alignment with a brand that's going to support, some of the flexibility or just the mission and values of what I hold true now, that absolutely could be different than what you were 10 years ago, for sure.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
So I think that, for the career glow up, it's sitting down and getting that clarity to write out potentially all the things you love doing, maybe some of the things you don't, certainly seeing if there's potential in your current business to speak up and say, hey, it's a new year. Things are still evolving here with 2022 as we head in winter, and certainly people are hiring. There's a lot going on, so there's still a lot of growth, but also seeing what opportunities are available, but then looking outside and saying like, okay, if there isn't something here for me in my current brand, what maybe I'm not loving to do that could, with a pivot, give me more job satisfaction or something a little bit different where I'm feeling challenged and not stuck.
Yeah.
But just like, I think that it is so important for us to just, keep moving forward with all of the things that we want to do in life that truly make us feel good, that fuel our soul, that give us a balance for whatever that means, and not chasing the big shiny things, but really chasing the things that are going to light you up inside and get you excited. So
there's nothing worse, and I'm sure we've all been there, and I'm sure that whoever is listening to this and is in the present moment, they're like, oh, this is totally me, I'm feeling this. When you're in an environment that's not inspiring, it actually probably impacts the people around you more than you realize. I know that this has definitely been the case for me, to the point where, like in my personal life, I'm being told, hey, you gotta leave this at the door. And, those things, like when you are in an environment that isn't inspiring, that isn't bringing out your best self, maybe because it is a misalignment on values or culture or whatever, it's not just you feeling that, it's your team feeling that, it's your colleagues, it's your family, your loved ones. And it's just beneficial for everyone for you to be in the right alignment, to be in the right place. And I guess that leads me to almost a follow-up question, which is that, do you think that people who are maybe not feeling inspired today would feel more inspired if they were receiving a promotion, or is it something where they fully need to pivot? Like, how do they figure out what the right next step is for them?
Yeah, I would depend. So if you're dreading getting out of bed every day to go to work, a promotion's probably not going to change that, right? So I would say, if you feel valued, seen, heard, listen, we know our industry and many industries aren't all about giving hugs and stickers and butterflies and accolades and trophies.
Right.
Like no, especially growing up in like in the 90s, 2000s, in retail when all the crazy stuff really was happening too. But I think that there is a satisfaction of being recognized and appreciated for sure. And, if you're in an environment where maybe you've been a bit timid to speak up, but you've gotten really great performance reviews and stretch assignments. I mean, brands will always try to hold on to good people, especially right now. No one wants to lose a great person in this environment. And I would say, if you're someone, that's sitting there feeling like this, like my brand's trying to do everything to keep me, have you spoken up? Have you asked about what's next? Certainly we're getting into performance time, wherein don't be afraid, don't be shy to speak up and, maybe talk about some things. If you're in an environment where they're really trying to appreciate and show you your resignation, like you never want anything to be surprise, right? Because it shouldn't take a resignation for you to be in a promotion situation. Sometimes that does happen. And if you truly just love the people and you love what you're doing and it comes at that point, amazing. You have to make the best decision for yourself. But it's like, the question is, the devil worse than the devil you don't. And really, I think in this day and age, the uncertainty of going somewhere new where you have it good, a lot of times it takes something like pretty unique and pretty special. So I think there's an opportunity for brands to really hold on to people if their people are feeling challenged and seen and heard. Now, if you wake up, again, going back to dreading going to work every day, and you're right, Tracy, like, if you start to physically change as a person, your outlook, the way you go through the day, if like little things like really start to annoy you, you get like agitated easily. I mean, there's something deep there, right? And we sometimes do spend a lot of more time at work sometimes than we do with our family and at homes. And especially working from home, it's like we feel like we've been all working 24/7 for the past 2 years. So certainly if you are always on edge, dreading going to work, having panic attacks,
it's real.
Like really getting defensive about things, like I would say then it's probably time to start having conversations before you start to then want to job search from a place of emotion. That's probably the worst thing that anyone can do. Do not make a job switch in a very emotional state, because that's when mistakes can be made. You're just wanting to get out, and it's like, am I compromising what my career path is because I can't stand it anymore? Someone's going to throw a bunch of money at me, and it's like, fine, but I'm like, oh, this is really the right thing. So that would be my 2 cents on both sides. Like, if you're feeling valued and feeling good, speak up. If you don't want to get out of bed every day, call a recruiter.
Call Meghan.
Glow up your resume. Start your little brag folder. Okay, I want to hear 10 accomplishments of what you've done, the past couple of years. What are you really proud of? It's just like, start to get yourself in interview mode before you're at a place of frustration where I don't care what interviews you go on. If you're going in and you're in this emotional place, like ready to like roll out your company on a red carpet of like toxic
here are all the reasons why I hate where I am.
No one's gonna hire you. No.
No,
Here's what I hate about working. I mean, sure, who doesn't love to like
Yeah.
drama. That's why we watch
Yeah,
television,
yeah,
right?
but
But it's just like not an
no,
interview.
better for the TV. And it makes me think
Yeah,
too about how you have to trust your gut, because if you are in a place where you're feeling like, yes, all of those small things are really impacting you, what I have always done in situations like this is if I've been able to, I take a little bit of time off to see, okay, is this just me being like a little over
right,
dramatic? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Or am I actually feeling that this is like my gut reaction to a bad situation? And if at least this has worked for me, if you're coming back from some true R&R and you're like, absolutely not, I cannot go back to that place. I'm not excited. I don't feel
right,
refreshed. I'd rather be out. That to me is a really good sign that you are not necessarily acting emotionally, but you are making an informed
right,
decision. But I agree with you. You can't bring all of those emotions in that way. There's always a way to frame it. You have to be your own PR team and market yourself and really figure out how you're going to take the opportunities and not make them look like you're part of the problem, but actually that you've looked to solution them and that you're looking now for something that's a better fit for you. So
right.
I hear that. I
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah.
One of the things that I get constantly in my DMs as far as a question goes, and I get a lot, but most of them are
Hmm.
focused on breaking into HR, making changes and things like that. So, what
Hmm.
are some ways that people
Mm.
can be strategic about making changes, whether it is, maybe shifting industries or breaking into HR, whatever that looks like, thinking through making a change that is not based on experience, but really something brand new. And how does that person know when it's the right time to make a move when they're maybe in a good environment, but they're ready maybe for a change?
I feel like you said it so beautifully. Going back to our time in the podcast is, well, first and foremost, to make a strategic, meaningful change where you may be changing departments, or otherwise, it's dropping the ego, right? It's
Yeah.
knowing that if you are wanting to get, in a corporate setting environment, HR, talent, whatever it is, it's understanding that if you're a senior leader in the field or otherwise, it may not be the same title and level of responsibility. You got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Embracing that fact not only will get your foot in the door, because anyone is going to be willing to take a chance on somebody that has a self-awareness, but I would definitely say, like, get your foot in the door in the right way that feels right for you. So, you don't want to feel like you're taking too many steps back. But I think we also talked about this before, Tracy, too, is especially HR, like talent acquisition is a great place to
Mm-hmm.
start, because it gets to the heart and the soul of the people and the culture of a team, and really knowing how to strategically build a team. Sort of understanding those right questions to ask the people. I mean, that is what gets you
Yeah.
involved in people. And then from there, HR is a lot of laws, it's a lot of
Yeah.
compliance.
Yeah. Even more
Um,
so now.
yeah. So, I would definitely say, sort of take those baby steps, whatever that looks like. And then to kind of pivot industries in and itself. I mean, there's so many people that have, and especially again on the retail side, bounce between fashion,
Mm-hmm.
beauty, watching jewelry, tech side of it, the direct to consumer
Mm-hmm.
piece. There's definitely going to be things that you're missing. But again, if you go into an interview saying, here's what I have, here's the value I add, I'm willing to learn, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves, I'm ready to jump in, 9 out of 10 times, those soft skills are going to get you hired.
Yeah.
Someone is going to potentially take a chance if they know you have a great attitude
Yeah.
and you're going to align with the team, and you're teachable and all of those things.
This episode is brought to you by Namely. The role of HR has changed drastically over the last couple of years. With remote work on the rise, constantly changing compliance requirements, and a historically competitive talent market, making sure your team is supported in their work and community is more crucial than ever. That's why you need Namely, the all-in-one HR solution that offers everything you need to set you up for success along with dedicated support, giving you all the help you need to help your team. Namely helps you easily adapt to the ever-changing workplace and maintain a great employee experience, whether you have 50 or 1,000 employees. with onboarding, performance management, and intuitive benefits enrollment all in one connected and modern platform. Plus, Namely can streamline your payroll, time tracking, and vacation requests, so you can be everyone's favorite HR leader no matter how your company grows. Companies are built on people. Don't let either fail. Get the support you need and learn more about making the switch to Namely today by going to namely.com. Don't wait, that's namely.com. Thinking about, we talked a little bit about hiring and interviewing, but looking ahead, we're talking about a glow up. So naturally that comes with some predictions and some trends. So first and foremost, what are some trends that are, coming into the space for recruitment, hiring, and interviewing? What are some of those things that maybe are not were not trends last year, but that are trends today, from what you can tell?
About the process,
yeah,
like
when it comes to hiring and interviewing, are there any new trends that people should be thinking about getting ahead of?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things. First and foremost, I feel like we've gotten a bit more comfortable with the digital side of the video piece, right? It still blows my mind that, gosh, I mean, I would say for all of the placements that I had personally last year, maybe like one or two people out of like 50 plus were in person.
Wow. So
which is like insane.
So maybe that's a
insane
trend that's out, is meeting in person. Maybe it's all about
efficiency. It is. It's efficiency, and it's about, sometimes just feeling okay with like meeting a virtual team, especially for some of these roles that potentially are remote, between Boston, New York. We sometimes share, and now it's kind of exciting to be able to share a candidate pool where that's a trend too. Like never before have we said, oh, this is a Boston-based company, find me somebody that's in New York. Wait, what? That opens up a whole new can of worms as, Boston love over here. But, it's a small city. Let's face it, so the talent pool, certainly in some, areas of the business can be limited. So it's kind of fun to be able to recruit, and even coast to coast, depending. I just talked to somebody today who relocated to LA, and they're like, fine, I'll work East Coast hours because I get up early.
Wow, I love
and
that.
Then I'm done in the afternoon,
right?
You have the whole LA afternoon.
Wow, that's amazing. Note
right?
to self.
Note to self. I know. Well, I know, Tracy, I feel like you would take the adventure to Hawaii with me. That's one of the reasons we love traveling there. It's like, you don't have like the work scaries. You get a little scared when you're up at 6 a.m. and it's noon on the East Coast. You're like, oh my God, my emails. But at least you have like between, well, I'm supposed to be on vacation, people. I'm going off tangent, but don't check your emails. But second, when you do, but then by noon Hawaii time, it's 6 p.m. and like you're like unbothered.
Yeah, it's like I got the whole day ahead of me.
So yes, if people move across the country, that's not a trend, but it's a trend, of that remote talent. So that would be it. The video piece, I will tell you, there's a lot more case studies being thrown around than ever before, where you got to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, for use of a better term. Like, especially in some of these creative roles, be it social media influencer positions we're hiring for, which is a trend, influencer marketing, brand partnerships, e-com, some marketing things. Again, creative. A lot of brands did their own glow up over the past couple of years of saying, okay, here's our moment to rebrand a bit. Show us your work. Let us, give us a situational example. And we want to see the way that you're thinking before we put this big salary behind you and bring you on board. And I will tell you, some people I work with definitely take offense to that.
Interesting.
Like they're, companies are going to be stealing my ideas. I want to put everything out there, and rightfully so. Like, I understand there's definitely certain brands that, maybe have this great wealth of knowledge because of all the case studies, but that's not everybody. It's not everyone. If there's something you don't feel comfortable doing, then that's a choice you need to make for yourself. But I will tell you, there's a lot less risks being taken on the hiring side. So I think the process could maybe seem a little more intense than before because everyone wants to make sure it's the right fit.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to virtually show up. You're going to have to be able to articulate what, and you're going to have to show them
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
Or even for somebody that may be listening in that is a hiring manager, if you're getting pushback from someone not wanting to do a case study, it's a flag.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, this is a part of the interview process. I mean, I've worked with big global brands too, and I don't know if you've heard of this, that use video recording
Yes.
systems called HireVue,
Yes.
wherein you don't get a first interview with HR.
Yeah.
You get a first interview with a system that asks you 5 questions, and you got 30 seconds. It's like The Bachelor, of recording your best answer and, pressing play and record and save and upload and pray it all goes well. But that is something that we've had to get comfortable with. And that was starting before the pandemic, but I think that streamlining processes and conversations and the time that it takes, like HR does not have the time anymore to be doing all these first round interviews in some brands with the amount of hiring that has to go on. Can you imagine? I mean, especially for like a temp or seasonal or, in certain roles or functions where you have to hire a lot of people in a short period of time. So I would say, definitely get comfortable with video. And if something doesn't feel right in the process, don't move forward, but know that it's a process for everybody.
It's interesting. I actually did a podcast episode and interviewed a CEO of a brand. His name is Mike Seidel, and we talked about human interaction in interviewing and hiring, and that these systems can play a role, but there's a certain way that they can play a role without replacing that human element. And I think that is something that, in this next question, we'll probably come back to this, but it's something that I know there's obviously a lot of interest in because it's so much work. There's so much labor that goes into hiring. And with the Great Reshuffle, as it's now been rebranded, because apparently it's no longer the Great Resignation, even though it is still the Great Resignation. Like, I'm here for a rebrand. I've rebranded a million times, but it's apparently now we have to say the Great Reshuffle. But I mean, it is what it is. Regardless of what you call it, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are resigning for different opportunities or resigning to take time off. And that is just the fact. And one of the questions, it's probably my last question for you, which is really around the predictions that you have around the job market for 2022. I would love to share my predictions, and maybe we can have a little brainstorm here, and maybe there are some things that listeners will be able to look out for or also predict themselves. Because something that I always like to do as a candidate at any point is really think about, okay, well, what is going to allow me to stick out? What is going to get me to the next step? Because it is a competition. You're competing with other candidates. You're competing in your own career. And so you have to kind of be one step ahead. So one of the predictions that I have for 2022 is actually more attrition. I think that there are going to be even more examples of people being understaffed and turning over because of the present challenges with staffing. Like, I think that is playing a huge role. But what I do think, and this is the positive side to that, because obviously there are a lot of that's like super saddening, but I think that what will come of that is that I think companies that are not people first are either not going to make it, or they're going to go through an incredible shift, which will be good for everyone if they do. But there are companies that I'm even, aware of today that still are, talking about 5 days of PTO or 10 days of PTO, and you can't use them until you've worked for 6 months, and or like you don't get your benefits on day one. And those things, they were antiquated last year. They are, and once a candidate knows that, it's done. The game is over. They're going somewhere else. So I think those companies that, are very used to saying, oh, people are going to work for us because we are X, I think that's going to be long gone this year. So what are your predictions for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a lot to get people on board from both sides.
Yeah.
And I would also say that as much selling as a person should do for themselves in the interview process, please, any brands, companies, CEOs are just putting this out in the universe. It is a bit of a brand responsibility to share why someone should work there, as well,
Mm-hmm.
and to create a process in the whole interview, start to finish, of everyone being able to articulate in an amazing way,
Mm-hmm.
how would somebody describe the culture, what do people love, enjoying working here, sure, like other perks and benefits. I mean, it honestly is probably the third thing that comes out of anyone's mouth I'm talking to on the candidate side, are what are the benefits, which I really haven't. Yeah, in my 10 plus years doing this, it was always about, you're
Mm-hmm.
right, the brand, the big shiny brand. And a lot of times they would compromise on a shortened PTO
Mm-hmm.
schedule or whatever to be like, oh, I'm going to get my foot in the door. But it's not the case. People want balance. This is not an easy industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's an industry where if you're not balanced, you get burned out real quickly. I hope also from a field point of view, gone are the days are like, you're going to work 6 days through the holidays, open and close, and we'll give you 4 PTO days to use in January. Oh, okay. If I'm not
Yeah.
dead,
Oh, and by the way,
like,
there's
come
not going to
on.
be enough staff to actually cover your days, so you can't take them
Right.
anyway.
Right. Or just like, we're going to set up this
Yeah.
cot. And it's like, come
Yeah.
on. I think the pandemic has done a bit of a service reshuffling, wherein
Mm.
in large masses, people can't just flock and come into stores.
Yeah.
I remember the days of working at Louis Vuitton where, oh my God, I think, at any given Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, I'm probably helping like 15
Mm.
people at the same time. That's not luxury.
No.
And nothing to beat that up. I mean, you're talking like 2006, 7, where it was just like, let's make the dollars, let's get in there, let's sell as many speedies as we can. But now you're seeing more of a controlled environment where it's about building relationships,
Mm-hmm.
clienteling, being able to spend that one-on-one time with people. And I think for someone front facing, like, that's really satisfying. When you're not trying to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, and that limits a little bit of the exhaustion. But I would say for sure, predictions 2022, like, brands need to do a better job talking about their why and making workplaces desirable versus the mentality of, well, somebody would be so lucky to work
lucky.
here.
Yeah, it's so true. How does someone who, is ready to make a change, they're excited, they're going in, they're ready to go, and they're meeting with different companies, how and which questions, but really how do they figure out the essence of the organization to really understand if what they're walking into is going to be the right fit for them? Because naturally, just as the candidate is hopefully presenting their best selves, the employer is also hopefully presenting their best selves. So what are some things that, candidates can do to really understand whether it's going to be the right fit? And there isn't something,
Yeah.
under
Behind the scenes.
that they don't
Yeah,
know
like
about.
what's going on. First and foremost, I mean, at any given point, if you're ever feeling stuck in an interview or you feel like all your questions have been answered, one thing, people typically tend to love to talk about themselves. So turn it around on the interviewer and say, what do you love about working here?
Mm.
What brought you to this company? Tell me about your journey to this brand. That right there, my friend, if someone can rightfully say that, oh my gosh, like, I've been here for X amount of years, like, there's been so much growth, like, the executive leadership team
Mm.
has been in place, I've had the same boss, just things like where you can see someone's eyes light up to be like, I truly enjoy liking what I do, unless they're like a full-on paid actor, where there's like just kind of like blind face and just like, yeah, it's amazing. You typically can feel out somebody's energy. And then the second part is, how would a counterpart, or how would someone in the business, if I talk to somebody in X, Y, and Z department, how would they describe working here? I think any of those like direct questions about the how someone would describe and why work here, that is a pretty telltale sign. What you can pick up is, oh, I've had 3 bosses in 3 years. Maybe a little red flag.
Yeah.
Or the last person in this role lasted 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another good question to ask. What happened to the former person in this role?
Oh, that is always a good
If
one.
you hear, oh, they got promoted, you're like, oh, wow, succession. if you are here saying, oh, this is the 5th time we fill this role, why? And be bold, please, everyone. Be bold. This is as much as your interview as it is theirs. Be professional.
Yeah.
But be a little bold in the sense where sometimes these questions can be a little fearful to ask because, again, it's the confrontation piece of like, do we really want to hear what the answer is going to be? But you're doing yourself a disservice if you think there's all these amazing bells and whistles and you get in and you make a mistake. Truly, a company is going to show you their true colors in an interview process. So eyes wide open, everybody, of how you're treated before, after, during the follow-up, all the things.
I love that.
So those are 2 good questions for sure, but also be aware of the process and how it's being managed.
I love that. Honestly, I feel like that is the perfect place to leave this because you're leaving all of us, including myself, but all of the listeners with so much to take away because I mean, it is a beautifully competitive market out there for a candidate. And it is, I've been saying on the last few podcasts that for the last, really probably the last 2 months that the employee is in the driver's seat and the candidate is in the driver's seat. And so if you are equipped with these tools, all of you listening, then you will hopefully make better decisions and hopefully even be able to pick between a few offers or a few companies and really weigh the decision. And I think with that, I just want to say, Meghan, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for being such an amazing friend and colleague and everything in between. I mean, it's been such a pleasure watching you grow and your podcast grow. And with that, I would love for all of the listeners to know where to find you and where they can keep up with you and maybe even ask you some questions.
Sure. Yeah. No. Well, thank you, Tracy. And it's, a true telltale sign of just how to build a very beautiful and I would say, again, this word is used a lot, but genuine relationship where, it's a series of time it takes to really kind of build up trust and support for each other. So it's honestly, I so appreciate you being there from day one with me, and here we are now. So thank you for all you do and for all your support as well. But yeah, to find me on the recruitment side, I have so many parts of my business. I sit at the Bowerman Group, which you can find us on LinkedIn. And, we post jobs. We also have our website, bowermangroup.com, where people can come and apply to jobs that we work on in the retail, corporate, and wholesale space. I also do a lot of executive development and career development, personal development coaching through my own platform, which is Meghan Houle. So my website, www.meghanhoule.com. And my podcast is called Pivot with Purpose. And very much like you, yes, on all the platforms where we talk about career pivots. Tracy's been on there. So, everyone go listen to her episode as well. And, we have a lot of great advice. It's going to be a new season coming up. So a lot of ways to engage. You can find me on LinkedIn under Meghan Houle as well. Please connect, shoot me a little message. Ask me any questions. I'm totally here to be a network and a resource for anyone who needs it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Meghan. And to all of the listeners out there, I will put all of those links in the show notes so you don't have to grab a pen and paper. We will make it super easy for you to just click and be connected. That is the beauty of the technological world, I suppose. But thank you so much, Meghan. This was amazing.
Thanks, Tracy.